Matthew chapter 5. So this is the Sermon on the Mount, and it starts off with the Beatitudes. And basically the Sermon on the Mount is, because it's called that because, as it says here in verse 1, Jesus saw the crowds, and then he went up to the mountainside and sat down, and he began to teach them. Well, his disciples came to him, and then he began to teach them. So it was a sermon that was delivered on the mountainside, so that's why it's called the Sermon on the Mount. And the whole sermon actually takes up 3 chapters. So it takes up chapter 5, chapter 6, and chapter 7. And in all these 3 chapters we have all these great teachings. Like here in chapter 7 we have the story of the wise and foolish builders. The one who built his house on the sand and the other built his house on the rock. We also have the teaching on ask and it will be given to you, seek and you will find, knock and the door will be open. In chapter 6 we have the Lord's Prayer, and in chapter 5 we have salt and light. You are the salt of the earth, you are the light of the world. That's what I want to touch on, but also it has many other great teachings which I am not going to be able to cover. It teaches on murder, adultery, divorce, love your enemies. So yes, there is a lot of great stuff in these 3 chapters. And honestly, if a book was dedicated to each chapter, let's say a book of 1,000 pages, it would still not be enough to uncover all the truth that is in these chapters. There's so much depth, there's so much mystery that can be uncovered from these 3 chapters. Okay, so let's look at verses 13 to 16, and this is Jesus talking about, he says to his disciples in verse 13, you are the salt of the earth. Okay, first of all, I just want to say this. This is important for us to understand. Salt, back in the ancient world, back in Jesus' time, it was very expensive to acquire. If you had salt, you had something that was really valuable. Today we don't. When Jesus said this to his disciples, you are the salt of the earth, they immediately understood it in that context. Today we read it and we don't get it as how the people back then they got it, because today's salt is not really that valuable. Like, it's easy to get a packet of salt. You go to the store, you can get it for $5 or less. And so yeah, this particular teaching, it doesn't impact us in the same way that it impacted the people back then. And the thing about salt back then was that it can lose its saltiness. Like today in our modern world, the way we manufacture salt, it stays salty like in forever, right? It doesn't lose its saltiness. But back then, the salt, especially in the Middle East, it was capable of losing its taste. So people really had to look after it, like put it in a proper storage place, put it in proper containers, or a proper place where it can be kept safe from the conditions of the environment, from the weather, from moist things like that. The conditions of the environment were capable of ruining the salt and make it lose its saltiness, so you had to store it away properly. And if you didn't store it away properly, if you didn't protect it, if you didn't keep it safe, and then it loses its saltiness, people will look at you and say, oh dude, you wasted all that salt. So that is why when Jesus taught his disciples this particular teaching, it was more impactful for them because they really understood the context behind the teaching. So let's just read that. Verse 13, you are the salt of the earth, but if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. So when Jesus said this to them, you are the salt of the earth, as we can see from verse 1, this was Jesus teaching his disciples, and his disciples were obviously the first Christians. Were all of them were Jews, Israelites, and basic to their identity as individuals was their identity as a community, and that is they were the people of God, and they were to be God's representative throughout the earth. Everybody else were Gentiles, and they were God's chosen people, only the Jews. So it was true definitely in the Old Testament time that they were God's people, but now Jesus coming 2000 years ago and setting up the new covenant, now all of us, we are Christians, and we are all children of God, and we are all of us are God's people. So as he was teaching his disciples that, he was saying to them, you are the salt of the earth, and you are my followers, you are my disciples, and you are precious, you are valuable. Here on earth, you are the thing that is treasured most of all. Like, you are so valuable for this planet. So that's what is to be understood when he said you are the salt of the earth. Because the thing is, we know, like, as Christians, that is a very powerful truth, that we are like the power source for heaven here on earth. We are something that's valuable here on earth. Like, planet earth has depends a lot on us Christians, because we are the ones by which God outworks his will and his purpose here on earth. Like, the people who are not Christians, no shade on them, but they are not precious in the sense that they don't have God, in the sense that earth doesn't really view them in a high standard. And when I say earth, I mean like the whole of creation, like this planet, and even the universe at large. Like, wherever God is, that's where all of creation gravitates towards. And that means that all of creation only gravitates towards those who have the indwelling power of God, and that is Jesus Christ. And we Christians, we have Christ, we have the Holy Spirit, we have the Father within us. Like, he takes up residence in us as the beings that we are physically, us, the soul and the spirit. We are the handiworks of God, we are his inhabitation. So that's what Jesus was saying when he said, you are the salt of the earth. We are that commodity, so to speak, that earth really values, and we are to be the agents of change here on earth. And earth, the destiny of earth really is dependent on us. But in saying that, he also gives a warning that if salt loses its saltiness, then how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. So, like, all of us Christians, strictly Christians, we have this potential, as I already mentioned. We are the power source of heaven here on earth. But the problem is, with all this potential, there are a number of us who we don't outwalk this potential in our lives. The power of Christ, we don't value it, we don't think high of it, we don't make much of this power of this the person that who Christ is. Like every day you have Jesus with you, and your relationship with him is just it's just it's just poor. So that's why, like, then it what law it loses its saltiness, and then how can it be made salty again? People will, on judgment day, basically, God will, like, you had all that power, you on earth, you had all that potential, and you didn't protect it, you didn't care about it, you didn't outwalk it. So your whole life was good nothing good came out of it. You were just trampled underfoot the whole time you were on earth. So yeah, that's just what I want to share about salt.